What's up, Pitt fans? Welcome back to the PG Pitt Show, our second episode in as many days. I'm Stephen Thompson. That's Abby Schnable. We both cover Pitt athletics for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And we both watched Pitt lose, quite honestly, a pretty ugly game. Not a whole lot, honestly, that I find redeeming from Pitt's 77-67 loss to UCF in the Legends Classic, played at Daytona Beach. Effectively a road game, technically a neutral site. UCF only had to take an hour bus ride. Pitt, plane ride of I don't even know how long it would take to get down there, but probably a couple hours. But I don't really think there's any kind of overarching or detailed explanation needed for this one. I mean, a lot of the fears I think that we had about this team kind of realized itself and have realized themselves in their first two power conference games. But I mean, I think where we got to start is with the offense. Pitt shoots 39% from the field, 26% from three. They get some free throws that help them stay in this game, but I mean, just the numbers tell you one story. I think your eyes tell you another story. I mean, it was just like pulling teeth every time down the floor for Pitt.
Yeah, I mean, there was almost a 9-minute stretch between the first and second halves in which there wasn't a field goal made. The one point that had been made was an Omari Witherspoon free throw. Sorry, and then some Cam Corhen free throws. But that's 9 minutes where you're not making a shot. And credit to the physicality of UCF's defense, but the shot selection wasn't good. So it wasn't necessarily just a oh, we were making shots, but we were getting good shots, but they were defending us well. They weren't making good shots. They took Cam Corhen completely out of the mix in the second half. I mean, he had 15 in the first and only 2 in the second. Barry Dunning and Demarco Minor had sparks, but where the heck was Brandin Cummings? Like, it felt like any chance that they started to put points together, they couldn't sustain the momentum, or someone fouled, or they couldn't get the stop. And it was honestly really frustrating to see, because I thought in the first half they did pretty decently on both sides. It wasn't pretty basketball, but it was just a 1-point game at one point, and they were able to string together some momentum. Barry Dunning coming in off the bench was huge. But yeah, it's when you can't rely on almost anyone to get a bucket, like, that makes it really hard, because you teams in the past, like, a lot of teams have a go-to shooter, and Pitt just doesn't have that right now, and it's a serious flaw that they need to kind of try and find a solution to quickly.
Right. And it's one thing to have a diverse offense where a bunch of different guys can score, or be your leading scorer on any given night. And I think, you look at the box scores and maybe that is something you could have said about Pitt at one point, but I don't think that's actually reality. I think it's mostly that you don't know where the scoring is going to come from, and that's why your leading scorer is someone different every night. I just some of some of the bigger picture things about Pitt on offense just really baffle me. How little player movement there is, how little ball movement there is. I mean, like I saw them rack up 20 assists against Bucknell on Monday, and they had their best offensive output of the year. They made a ton of threes, and the ball just goes back to sticking again. And you can call it, you can credit UCF for their physicality on defense as much as you want, but like Pitt's a power conference team too, right? Like it shouldn't really be this difficult for them to move the basketball, to move themselves, to get the ball like across the floor. But for some reason, just can't do that. And I don't think they help themselves when they dump the ball off to Cam Corhen in the post, or offense is initiated off a ball screen and no one else is moving. It's just I don't know. It doesn't look good. It doesn't lead to open shots. It doesn't stress defenses, and then like Barry Cummings comes off the bench, and it takes them 9 minutes for him to get a shot. This is a guy who made 7 threes against Bucknell, like, and then he hits his first 2, I want to say, coming straight off the bench. Like I just don't understand how you don't have something ready to draw up a play for Dunning just to get him a shot, especially because he had made so many contested shots like in the last game. Nothing about this offense works, but unfortunately, it's what we've been seeing for at least all of this year. We can even go back to last year, but keeping it self-contained to this year, it's just a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, and it didn't help that, UCF was essentially having its way on the offensive end. I thought Pitt did a decent job taking away the three, in the stance of, this is a team that ranks second in the nation with making about, I want to say 47% of their threes, which is huge, and Pitt held them to 33.3%, but they allowed 46 points in the paint. They allowed 24 second chance points. And so even though they took away a big bulk of where UCF's points have come in previous games, it felt like they didn't prepare for UCF to score just about anywhere else because they were getting as many points. I mean, they had 3 different guys in double digits, and so did Pitt. But when you look at their percentages, I mean, Fulks was shot 18 or had 18.7 for 12. Riley Kugler 18 points, 8 for 14. Stillwell 12 points, 5 for 9. And Pitt's double digit players, other than Demarco Minor, don't even come close to that kind of efficiency. And it's just interesting because they kept digging themselves a hole. They would go on a run and then they would have a turnover or two back to back. They would go on a run and they'd let them, dunk the ball or get a really easy 3 in transition. And their defense was just like, I don't know, it looked fatigued at points. There was nothing that they could seem to do. And I mean, I think the frustration, not only on the defensive end, but the offensive mounted. And I think you saw it when Cam Corhen went to slam that ball down and it didn't work out. And he was doing it for a exclamation point that didn't end up being one. And so it's hard because that these guys have talent. It just seems like for whatever reason, they can't put it together at all.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up fatigue because that's what I thought, especially with Corrin. That's what it looked like. Especially late in the second half. I mean, I don't think Papa Kante played in the second half at all. He only played 6 minutes overall. And funny enough, he's one of 2 guys on the team who had a positive plus minus. It was him and Noyes, who was +3. Papa was a +1. We've watched this season, and some of Pitt's best lineups have involved playing Cam Corhen and Papa Kante together. And it's not like Papa was in foul trouble. I didn't even think he was playing particularly poorly. I thought he only played 6 minutes and grabbed a couple of rebounds. Like he scored once, was 1 for 2 from the field. Like I don't know what the rationale behind that was, and especially as you saw Cam start to wear down the stretch, which had a lot of residual effects, right? Like you couldn't go to him for a bucket when he was your best offensive threat in this game. He wasn't defending well on the interior. The ball, went, kind of had his way in the paint in that second half. And Corhen wasn't able to be a force on the boards. I mean, he had 11 rebounds, but most of those I think 7 of those came in the first half. Like they were just clear signs of wear. And I don't really have an explanation for why Jeff Capel wasn't able to turn to Papa Kante, because eventually I believe Kante, like I said, didn't play in the second half. So I just quite frankly didn't understand that. And I think especially when you think about how bad the rebounding was, like I know Roman Siulepa wasn't playing very well in this game, especially in the first half, but for him to only get 12 minutes in a game when you're struggling that mightily on the boards, it's just I didn't understand it at all. And you could just see kind of the effects of a team that's not very deep trying to go keeping their rotations even shallower.
Yeah, I mean, we knew Barry Dunning and Demarco Minor are decent rebounders coming in, but like between it's those 2 and Cam Corhen, and really no one else is jumping in at the boards, which is abnormal for this team in a way, because I feel like through these first couple of games we've seen them chase the boards, but it didn't even feel like they were like running for it. I mean, they were out rebound. I think, where did it go? 37-28. Like it's only 9 rebounds, but when UCF gets 24 second chance points, that's a lot of off or defensive rebounds that Pitt is missing that they probably shouldn't have. And, maybe there's the height discrepancy, but at this point, that's not something that Pitt can fix. They're not going to be able to fix their height. They can be a little bit tougher and they can run for the ball. And I just don't feel like there was a lot of, those intangibles you're looking for when someone's diving for the ball, when someone's crashing the boards. It just felt like everyone was like almost defeated at the beginning of the second half. Like other than, Demarco Minor's push there at the end with some of his threes, like everyone else kind of just seemed almost checked out, which can't happen, especially not on the 6th game of the season. Like there's so much more games to play. And if we're already getting defeated against a UCF team, which no offense to UCF, but they're not one of the best teams in the Big 12. And Pitt is going to have to play a lot tougher teams, not just in the ACC, but with a couple more of their non-conference as well.
Yep. A 10-1 run to open the second half from UCF turned a 2-point lead into an 11-point lead, and that seemed to be kind of where things were kind of curtains for Pitt. Pitt, who was favored in this game, according to our friends at FanDuel, they were 1.5-point favorites going into this game. They end up losing by 10. And look, you look ahead, and there are a bunch more power conference games on the schedule, and they aren't particularly world beaters. Texas A&M, I believe, was a preseason ranked team where they were up at least in KenPom, and has not really looked like that team so far this year. Penn State, always tough to get them off the ground, and then Villanova in kind of limbo, since firing Jay Wright. But it's hard to look at any of these, and then Ohio State as well, who I think is undefeated, and seem to be playing pretty well, but a team that's probably going to finish in the top half of the Big Ten. Even those teams that do seem a little bit more down on their luck, seem a little bit more on Pitt's level per se. UCF was on their level, this was by every kind of predictive metric, and the betting lines were supposed to be a really close game, and a game that Pitt not only could have won, but should have been much more competitive in. And that second half showed us that they are a long way from being that competitive.
Yeah, and again, I go back to, it's something that they need to fix, and they need to fix fast. I mean, you've got Ohio State next week, Texas A&M's on the schedule soon, and again, it doesn't lighten up. And if you're already looking, this fatigued, this defeated, this early in the season, what's that to say for the rest of the game? So I'm hoping, they've gone on the road twice. This felt like a road game. They've gone on the road twice. And they've lost both games, and those also happen to be both their power conference games. And with Pitt in a power conference, it's a little disappointing to see that they just couldn't get it together. And I hope, for Pitt fans' sakes, that they are able to find something somewhere down the line, because I do think there are a lot of these guys that have the talents to, pull up points. I mean, we've seen the individual performances this season already. So now it's just a matter of putting it together, and I guess we'll see if they can.
We certainly will, Abby. We will be following them all the way down the rest of the season to see if they can. But for right now, we are going to close this video right here. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to PG Pitt on YouTube, find all of our written work at post-gazette.com, and stay tuned as we bring you more from Atlanta this weekend as Pitt football takes on Georgia Tech. Thanks all for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.